Good morning, everybody. We are welcome. We're trying a new system this morning. Eventually, I would like to have our meetings in such a way as that we can do them on Zoom and in person at the same time. So we're trying to figure out the technology. You all bear with us. Glad you all could be here. Let's go ahead. We've got a long agenda, and I hope you all have comfortable seats here in our peanut gallery out here. Find a soft chair, because it's going to be a long meeting. Let's go to our first part of our call meeting to order, by the way. Let's go to the first part of our agenda, and that's the adoption of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda as written?
So moved.
Thank you, Bruce. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda as written, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Great. All right. As a workshop, we have to follow what is in our charter and also under the rules of procedure. It says that we offer workshops so that all of us can get together and discuss city business and issues, and also give our community a chance to participate in the discussion. We also know that no official action can take place during the workshop. So let's get started. Our first agenda item is item number 3. That's our city manager report. I've asked Jason to briefly summarize all the business aspects that he's been working on lately, and I'm going to turn it over to Jason. First of all, Jason, thank you for putting all this on the website. Thank you for putting the packets for this meeting on the website. He has learned to use the website, and we appreciate that. So take it away, Jason.
Madam Mayor, good morning, council. If anybody that's listening, if you go to SkyValleyGA.com, on the main page about halfway down, this packet is attached. There's also the server line power pump that's attached. That will get the letter. But just want to briefly talk about some of the things that are going on. The generator for the Public Works and Police Department. We have received one quote for that. We met with Deere Generators out of Scaly last week, James and myself. He is in the process of getting us a quote. That should be within my spending threshold, and we will pay for that out of the Public Works and Police Department budgets, since it would benefit both departments, and there's money there to do that. Also, I'm asking Mr. Deere to provide us with a proposed maintenance plan, and we can go around and, like, annually or biannually check our generators for all of our wells. We do not have that, and so anyway, it's something we're working on. Monthly, quarterly reports to department heads. When I first got here, one of the questions or comments from our Public Works Director as well as our chief, they didn't know what the budget was. So I have began providing them with a monthly expenditure report so they can track their spending. Right now, as we start April 1st, or early April, we're now approximately 1/4 of the way through with our year. We are on track with most of our line items. We're at 25% or less. So as far as spending goes, we're doing pretty good right now. You should have received an end-of-year report from Ms. Kessler. I forwarded that to you all. I looked at that briefly. I did reach out to her and ask her if there was anything that I needed to comment on or add. She did not get back with me. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer that, but I'm kind of limited from not getting back with her. CDL, Dustin Hensley. We do not have anybody to drive the new Freightliner truck. Dustin is going to go and get training to do that. He should start that this summer. We do have some equipment that does require a CDL, so trying to be progressive, we're doing that. And so he will begin that training soon. Level 3 water certification, we have another employee code English. At this time, we are utilizing the services of the contractor, the Reagan County Water Authority. We're going to try to bring that in-house. We'll do our monthly testing. He will be going to Carrollton, the end of the month. He'll have to go for a week of training, and he'll take the test, and once he does that, the plan is to be able to do that testing in-house. I have began working with creating some job descriptions, updating an annual performance appraisal form, updating our handbook, personal policy. I have forwarded some of the job descriptions to the chief of the James. We're still looking through those, and we hope to bring those to you very soon. Let me add some people here to the Zoom meeting. I'm multitasking here, so bear with me. We have began updating the city website. Thank you all for those that are utilizing it more. We are trying to use that tool more. We will have representatives from GMRC here at the end of the month. Heather Feldman and her senior staff will be coming up on the 27th. We will be hosting them. They will be coming to talk about some of the services that they can provide, and we'd like to talk with them about some of the grants and some of the mapping that they can do. So we're excited about that. And also, I have updated some of the lease agreements. Many of those, even though they have an auto renewal, some of those are about 10 years old, and I've sent those to our city attorney. I hope you've got a chance to look at those. But many of those need to be updated because there's a lot of these agreements, they have handwritten strike-throughs and corrections. Even though I'm sure they're legally sound, they're just not the most professional looking anyway. In a nutshell, I know we have a long meeting. I just want to kind of briefly talk about some of the things we're working on, and I'll try to answer any questions you have, more than anybody else.
Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Mr. Moore?
Just on the level 3 water quality certification, what do you anticipate that will save us from that in-house?
Well, we're utilizing the services of Mr. McCall. It's usually between about $1,200 to $1,400 a month, so that's probably around $15,000 a year. So obviously, we would want to incentivize this gentleman since he will be becoming more valuable. But I'm anticipating, hopefully, we'll be saving around $10,000 a year. Plus, Mr. McCall, I'm sure he does a great job, but it would be good to have somebody here that has that internal perspective where the water line and things are at. So, I think Cody's been with the city now for about 4 or 5 years, and he's very excited about doing this. So, it just makes sense to have that in.
Bill? Go ahead, Bill.
I think it'd also be a good idea that, once we do bring that in-house, to have a backup agreement with our current player. We have a case, something ends with Cody.
We can
out
do-
sick, et cetera.
We can do that. In fact, I haven't, I'm not going to put James on the spot, Mr. Holbrook's over there, but I know he has had conversation with Mr. McCall, and he has said he'll be glad to help Cody transition. So we will make sure that that's in place, that we have a smooth transition and be there if need be.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the testing happens, regardless of whether Cody's here or not, on schedule. So, some sort of backup agreement with our current player.
And I ultimately plan to have other staff to get that certification as well.
Any other comments or questions about Jason's report? Jason, you've been a busy person. I guess you're working 24/7 now? Thank you.
Well, it
Thank you.
seems like it.
Thank you for all you're doing.
I'm enjoying myself. I love this kind of work.
We're glad you do. All right, let's go on to item number 4, I think it is, and that's discuss the
I have
order.
a question.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, excuse me. As with our charter, you have to state your name, even though we know who you are and your address.
Yeah, this is Al Quinkowski at Pleasant Mountain. Jason, and the monthly and quarterly reports to the department heads. I know that that was not something that was available to the police chief and the superintendent of public works at the end of December. I was wondering if, when you were formulating this for the agenda, if you looked at past practices and what you discovered about that and why it's on this particular agenda.
I have not gone back and looked at why that has not been done in the past. It's just something to me that have been in a department head in the past. It's important to know what your budget is. It's just something that made sense to start doing that.
Well, that's what I'm aware of too, is that the department head should have pretty much a daily identification of what his budget is for the remainder of that day and the following days. And the council had told at least 2 department heads that wasn't available in December. So anyway, I think that's a great idea that you're doing that, and it should be available. On the updating leases, over here at the walking path, there have been, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 trees that have been blown down for about 5 months. I was told that that is not part of the city's responsibility. And I'm curious as to whether or not on the lease, because I don't know for a fact, if we just have the walking path and everything inside of it, or if the lease has to do with all of the property, that parcel that Harrison Merrill owns. Would you be able to explain that?
I really can't dive that deep into the particulars. I'd have to go back, but that lease or those leases, they're pretty generalized in the comments. I mean, I'm thinking it just, most of them, they just reference the property. Like, for example, the waterfall and the trail, or they reference the overlook, or the park across from the post, where the postal boxes are at. It's fairly general in the referencing. I mean, I really can't speak as far as what tree. I do know that Public Works, there are a lot of things that we maintain just because if we don't do it, it doesn't get done regardless of what the lease is. I don't know, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but can you speak to that behalf, or do you have any knowledge of that?
As far as the tree over here in the park, I talked to Al, me and Al discussed that before, and I was told that Steve Mason was gonna clean the tree up. He wanted the wood and all this, and I told him we've had several complaints about it. It is Merle's property. I don't even know where the lease is. You know, I don't know, like Al said, I don't know if it's inside the walking path, if it goes border to border, we don't know. Which I told Steve if I need help, we'd be glad to come help to get the tree up. You know, we just couldn't deal with the firewood part. You know, we could brush it and chip it, whatever, and then he could handle the log. Or if we could log it up and load it on his truck with our equipment, whatever we could do to help get it out of there. We was willing to help them to make it look more presentable.
We can certainly investigate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
But
sir.
we are willing to work with the golf course to get it up and get it out.
Thank you.
But apparently there have been complaints about that. There's more than one tree, there's just one.
Yeah, it's took down several
And a number
trees.
of fell down with it.
But now you gotta understand too, the weather we've had with the 7, 8 inches of rain, it's hard to get equipment on that grass. I mean, it's gonna sink, you know. But it has been down for a while. He's exactly right.
We'll look into it. Thank you.
And the leases, your references to the overlook, the park, One Creek Follows and Trails. I questioned a while ago the lease that the city has engaged in with Ed West Realty and Patty Calderon. In the GMA handbook, there's a section relative to the lease of city property. Not sure if you're familiar with that or not, but it also refers to OCGA. And that leases on property owned by a city have to go out by auction or sealed bids. And that was never done. And because you're addressing pieces, I suggest maybe you look at that and see where the city sits legally with OCGA. Just a suggestion as far as that. And then the other thing with the property, as far as this walking trail, I don't know what the council has as far as thoughts on the natural occurring wetland. However, that one particular area, it seems to me that one particular area is a relatively small area where it's being left natural. And maybe a suggestion would be to expand that, instead of having Mr. Holbrook's crew trim the grass, let the rest of it in that whole pond area grow up and be a natural area, as opposed to, I don't know, what is it, 20 by 30 feet? Because, in my opinion, it doesn't look that good compared to what you want to portray the rest of Sky Valley. Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony, did you want to, Tony met with the DNR. Did you want to say anything about that?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, we asked Department of Natural Resources to come up and evaluate that property for, because it is classified as a primary trout water. There are very, severe restrictions on what you can and can't do. And their suggestion now was just what we said. We want to look at making that a natural sort of vegetation area. We could bring in some species like certain butterflies and other things that would flock to that area depending on the vegetation that you put back. So we're working with the University of Georgia and DNR.
Yeah, to me that sounds like a good idea, especially when you're looking at trying to beautify the timeshare building, and you've got one area that Sky Valley owns, it leases, that's a really small area as big as this here, and it doesn't fit. It's out of whack. And so I think that if you maybe expanded that, it would look nicer. And if you put, like you're saying, different flora and fauna in there to attract what you're looking for, it would present better.
That's exactly what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Jason's report? Thank you. All right. Now we can move on to item 4, which is discuss the ordinance to update the city logo. In our efforts to have a recognizable, unified branding or logo, you can never with our signage and our, marketing efforts, we had gone ahead and had our logo, city logo redesigned. I hope you all had a chance to look at it. It comes up on your email for our meetings now, and I think it's on the website. I think it's really good looking. But we discovered we have to amend an existing ordinance to designate our official symbol of the city. We all got a copy of that ordinance from our attorney. Any questions or concerns about that? I'm looking online to see if there's anything. Yes, Jim?
I looked at the logo it was part of the package, and a nice big thing. It looked like it was nothing more than a dust picture of the mountains, so that it was all dark in the middle, and then it was darkening up at the top.
That wasn't a really good picture in your packet. It did look bad, but if you look on your emails, you'll see that logo is included. I think it's very attractive. So look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any other? Okay, so that's.
Smalley is trying to give us a message after the meeting. Can you see it?
Yeah, I tried to.
Okay. Is this mic on?
It's on.
Yeah.
You just need to stand close to it.
We do have a microphone for the audience, and the red light is on. We'll make sure that the people in the Zoom land can hear our speakers. Thank you. Okay, let's go to.
Question on that? It's me again. is the,
Would you stand up to the microphone? Al, they're saying they can't hear you online. You can't hear me? And it's what the people online.
I was just wondering if the taxpayers are going to get the opportunity to vote on this city logo. I've heard some comments about, I think as Jim mentioned, is it seems kind of dark, and if it's being presented that way, there might be some different opinions out there. I'm wondering if there was going to, how fast we're going to move relative to the logo, and if the city was going to be able to vote on it.
If you look at the logo online, it doesn't look dark like it did in our package. I think it's pretty good logo, and it's in conjunction with what the marketing people recommended that we approved before. We'll probably talk about the ordinance next Tuesday, and I'll thank you. Okay, item 5, discuss the quote for the emergency repair of the culverts that across Mud Creek on Sky Valley Way. We're all concerned with recent flooding. That culvert's in pretty bad shape, and as we know, that is the main entrance to the majority of our houses here, so if that thing were to go, we would be in bad shape. Also, when it is flooded, it's a safety hazard in that if we need emergency vehicles to get in, fire trucks, paramedics and so forth, they cannot get in that way. So Jason, I'm going to let you talk about the bids that we have so far. We know that we still have some more information to gather before we even make a decision. At this point, we have several grants that we have approved. One is a DOT grant for $50,000 that is a matching grant, and we also have the American Recovery Act that we have been designated to receive about $85,000 over a 2-year period, so this certainly will help us cover the cost of this worthy project. Go ahead, Jason.
Mayor, you're right, about 2 weeks ago, we had about 10 inches of rain come through. About 10 o'clock that night, I believe it was a Thursday night, James and some of his staff actually had to close that section of Sky Valley Way right up here because it was underwater. So there is a intermittent problem that comes along. It seems like we need more and more of these 10-inch rain events. I have reached out to several engineers, local engineers. When I say engineers, I'm professional civil engineers. I've had one come up. He has provided us with a proposal to actually do the design work if we want to go that in depth. I've also met with a company called Contech, which is construction technology. They do a pre-packaged, prefabricated aluminum box culvert. This would also come pre-stamped, engineered, professional engineer stamp. There's a couple of options we can go with this. If we wanted to go full-blown engineering, which will cost more, we can go that around and then have culverts come in, or we could declare an emergency declaration because we're not creating a new road system, because we're not creating a new water course across the creek. It would be an in-kind replacement. We could do that. We still have to follow all the best management practices to go that route. But I share this to say that there's several options that we're looking at moving this forward. From an expense standpoint, the aluminum box culvert, there's 2 proposals there. One is around $72,000, one's around $77,000. That does not include the erection or the installation of those of that system. The other option that we received was an out-the-door price from a gentleman named Mr. Hare, who's down in the SNL Toccoa area. That quote is from Cedar Farms Construction. It is from last fall. We've reached out to Mr. Hare because of the age of that quote. He is gracious enough to come back out. He will be here not this Friday, but a week from Friday. We're going to discuss him doing the proposal as well. His quote is actually to install two 48-inch pipes to tear out the road, to put the road back, put the culverts in. It was around $90,000. Now, his proposal is to put back two 48-inch pipes, which is what we have now. One of the things that we want to talk with him about is to amend his proposal to possibly put in two 60-inch pipes to increase the flow and capacity. Going back to the aluminum culvert, we met with Tom Adams Construction late last week. From really kind of diving in and looking through there, we know that there are some utilities that are in the ground on the road there. Those utilities are going to have to be either rerouted or moved or capped. Mr. Adams would not give us a quote because of the unknown there, but if I had to give you my gut feeling from doing this kind of work for 20 plus years, it's probably going to be $80,000 to $100,000 to put the aluminum culvert in. Mr. Hare, I was not here when he gave his initial proposal. James, correct me if I'm wrong, again, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I believe if we go back with the in-ground piping, the culverts, they can close one lane at a time, so we would not have disruption of traffic through Sky Valley Way, and we would not have to do all of the rerouting of the utilities, or the degree of rerouting would not be as severe. So as we're kind of looking at options here, probably the aluminum culvert would be the best option, but it's going to be double the price. Going back with piping will be better than what we have now. Would not be as good as the culvert, but it would be about half the price. So we're looking at probably about $100,000 to go with two 60-inch culverts. Probably, that is including the material and installation, and probably close to $180,000 to $200,000 to go with an aluminum culvert erection on site. They wanted $15,000 to come and put it together on site, and that would take about a week. This is a pretty large piece of material here, so it is a big ticket item. There's some sticker shock there, but I would like to speak with Mr. Hare next Friday and get his take on where we should go and kind of revisit this. Obviously, we do know that something needs to be done, but it's held up for now, and it's just going to hold it a little bit longer. We're getting there. And I'll try to answer any questions.
The culvert bid that includes somewhat of a bridge-looking thing, did his bid include the road work that would have to be done? As far as we would have to have a temporary roadway put in, and then also the road being replaced afterwards?
Are you referring to Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir.
That would be part of the quote. One of the things we would have to do is we need to, I guess, call 811, James, and
Yes, we'd have to get locates and have them come out and locate all the lines. Tom Adams did request we have somebody come and look about relocating our water line. We have a 6-inch main that runs up through there.
James, could you come and speak up so the folks at home
Okay.
can hear you?
for the audience that's listening, as James walks this way, we have a 6-inch water line that runs underneath that roadway. That is a major section of water. And so there's some concerns there about relocating that water line, particularly working off the notion that it's not broke, let's don't fix it. So
Yeah, the 6-inch water line that runs through there feeds Sky High tank. That's how we get water to that tank. He would recommend that we bore it under the creek. The only problem I have with that, if we have a leak in that line years down the road, how am I going to know it's leaking? Or how are we going to find it? that's a big issue, you know. If we can keep it the way it is, we'll be better off, as far as my standpoint. I mean, it's hard enough to find ladies up here as it is. I mean, we struggled with this last one for 3 weeks, you know, we finally found it. If we get one under a creek, we never know. We're gonna lose water, and never know.
What other
James,
utilities?
you need to speak into the microphone.
Oh, okay,
Push it, pull it towards you or something. There you go.
all right.
What other utilities are running in that?
James, water, power, phone,
All utilities fall right down Sky Valley Way. You have the power, the telephone, cable TV, everything runs up down through there. And Mr. Hare, Lamar, that done it on Knob Drive, said there would be no issues with none of the utilities. He could do the work and plus leave a lane open. We wouldn't have to do it all the way in, no temporary roads or anything. He could leave a lane open. And so,
I would like to see what is the largest culvert pipe we can put in that area, because right now, we have like 2 different size culvert pipes in that, running in that area, is that correct?
you have 2 different types of pipe.
2 different
One
types.
is a steel casing pipe, and one is a regular galvanized.
they both appear to be 48 inches.
Yes, they're the same size, they're just different pipe.
The piping that Mr. Hare put in up on Nile Drive is actually one 60-inch pipe. And of course, it handles that flow. We want to speak with him about possibly putting 2 60-inch pipes there. So, I'm not an engineer, but I want to get his take on that. But I feel like 260, if we could go to 260 from the 248 that we have now, it would probably be very comparable to the flow that we could, capacity that we could get with that one open span aluminum box culvert we have in place.
And there's still no guarantee when we do this, that road's not going to flood. No contractor's going to give any guarantee that it will not flood. You know, because downstream, you know, the lake's full of silt. I mean, there's problems downstream in this. You know, they're not going to give any kind of guarantee that it will never flood again. Plus, like you said, you know, you're getting 7, 8, 10 inch rains up here. You know, you're getting everything from the mountains down in here. You know, we also flood right out here, you know, we got a drain right out here in the parking lot. Well, when everything backs up, it backs up out here also. Plus the curb, right, a little chapel, you know, it's like coming up there. So, I mean, it's an issue, you know, you get all the rain from this way, everything comes flowing right here to us, you know. So there's no way that they'll ever give you a guarantee that it will never flood. The biggest, my concern is I don't want the road caving. The culvert on the right-hand side, you know, where there are 2 culverts there, the one on the right, the bottom's gone now. The biggest issue I'm having is I don't want the road to collapse when somebody goes over. That's the main concern for me, you know.
Thank you, James.
You are.
It looks like we have a question online that wants to know, I think it's answered, is concrete box culvert an option?
What you said.
Jason answered, concrete is 3 times the cost of an aluminum or steel culvert.
That's correct, yes, ma'am. Trying to multitask you, I wasn't able to answer that question. But, you know, that is something we explored. I did speak with the gentleman we contacted, Mr. Pittman, and he answered the question. You know, the concrete is going to be significantly more. We're probably looking at about 200,000 versus the 70-something thousand.
The culvert we have right now has been here since 1970-ish.
That was probably original culvert,
It's
yes.
the original culvert, okay. So we'll all be in the home before anything were to happen to a new one.
It's also rather bad, so that it doesn't have the full capacity that the original 48-inch pipe and the original 60-inch pipe had to begin with. We started out looking for box culverts because the flow through was going to be so much greater.
Jim,
That's-
you have your mute on?
Hit your space bar, and then you're on the microphone. No, you have to hold it.
Okay.
Hold it.
I'm sorry to have to do this.
Oh, it's on Tony's, okay, go. Go ahead.
So the point is that the aluminum is the modern functional equivalent of the the box culvert. And James alluded to the idea that there's an entire watershed here, and we've got other culverts upstream from there. And when we go out to get our hazard mitigation grants, they're going to want to see that we've sized it properly, because this is the one down at the bottom. One of the engineering estimates included a study of the watershed area so that we could size the culverts appropriately. But the box culvert down, I'm sorry, the aluminum culvert down here would give us, you know, as much room as would be possible at that location. So, in terms of the engineering study, I think that's probably a good idea to do, not just because we may need it in the future to show that we've done our homework and that the whole system is going to work, we'll get the whole system fixed over time. But also because even though these are pre-engineered plans for the aluminum structure, you have to site adapt everything you do. If you're doing a building, you have to site adapt the foundation. If you're putting in a bridge structure like this, even though it's totally pre-engineered, you still have to set it on something stable. And I think it'd be penny wise and pound foolish not to do the engineering to make sure that the foundations that hold it up are going to stay there in place, because we're going to have a lot of weight above it. We're going to have heavy moving bands going over it. You know, this is one of those things where we've got one chance and we need to do it right. And I think that extra level of security that the engineer would provide would be advisable and responsible.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Bill.
I fundamentally agree with what Jim just said. Significant investment there. We want to make sure that it's a long-term solution and it actually solves the problem. When we know that there's upstream issues, you know, for instance, all of that coming down from the chapel where it runs into the creek there, and then from that culvert that we're talking about down to the lake, also has a capacity issue. So it is prudent to get a professional opinion on what we should be doing.
I could speak very quickly about that engineering estimate. Reached out to 4 engineers here in North Georgia. Like a lot of people, these guys are covered up. Many of them wanted to come up, they wanted to be charged for their time to drive up this way. Of the 4 that I spoke with, James Irvin, Foothills Land Design, is probably the best. So we were very fortunate to have him come up. I've known Mr. Irvin professionally for over 20 years, and I find his work to be very professional, very reasonable. And I do have another engineer that I spoke with. He's very, very busy. I could probably get another quote, but we're trying to move this forward. I just want to say that from what he proposed, he's very knowledgeable. He took the time to meet us on staff, and that certainly is an option, and to utilize his services.
Thank you, Jason. Mr. McNair.
I agree with your piping down there, but the main thing,
Excuse me,
back here,
Bob, the microphone is pointed down to the ground.
well, that's a good place.
Yeah, well, we can.
Back a few years ago, we had an engineering firm come in. The report that he gave was that this whole area right through here, the reason the water just sets more or less, it's no slope to it. We cannot make a slope because of the pond out there. If we did that, you'd have to really dig down the pond to take care of the water. The main thing that is backing up the water into this part of the city is the bridge right there, that the cement bridge is a dam. It's only got so much room for water. And you all know, you've driven by it, you see the water going up, going over it. It's a dam. If you remove that bridge and just put an archway for a golf cart to come over it, that's going to take care of a lot of the problem coming into this lodge and across the road. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. Good suggestion. Maybe that's something we can discuss with an engineer that comes down, Jason, to have him look at the concrete bridge that goes over with the golf carts. Have him look at that too, to see what type of impediment that is for our property.
Is that owned by the golf course?
I'm assuming they put it in, so I'm assuming so.
That discussion as well.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. We will continue to study this and come up with our best option, yes, at this point. All right, I think we're on item 6, discuss quotes to do repairs to City Hall. Jason, if you will just quickly summarize what needs to be repaired at City Hall and then talk about the bids.
Madam Mayor, City Hall is just like the 10 inches of rain that we got a couple of weeks ago. We have a drainage problem going on up there, kind of in Ms. Glenwood's area, out on the outside. Water pools right there. With enough rain, sometimes it actually will seep into the buildings. We have some concerns about foundational problems possibly down the road. Some of the lower exterior boards, from where the earth has been kind of pushed up against it, there's some rot there. Many of the window seals have rot around the windows. It's just an aging building that needs some maintenance. Of course, the drainage issue that we have, the water collects, there was about 3 or 4 inches of water pooling right there at the front door the other day. Obviously, we're not having customers coming into the building, but if we try to get back to normal, that could cause a problem there, danger water getting to the building. We were able to obtain 3 quotes, one from Southeastern Transformations, one from Jerry Ballard Construction, and one from Home Solutions. There's apples to apples as close as we could get them, but kind of breaking down from the price point. The 2 highest quotes, Southeastern Transformation, he gave a couple of options. I think you should have something from me earlier where he kind of gave it where if we just repaint the wood, and then gave a quote to replace the wood and repaint. But it is in the low mid 30s. Mr. Ballard's is in the 30s, and then if you look at the Home Solutions, I believe the total for it is around $22,695. Both Southeastern Renovations and Home Solutions provide proof of insurance. And based on the detail of the quotes, my recommendation would be to go with Home Solutions based on what they're proposing and to do the minimum amount of work that needs to be done.
As a point of reference, we have designated in our last SPLOST funding, I think it's $50,000 of the SPLOST funds was designated towards building, so this certainly would be a source of revenue for our repairs to City Hall. At this time, any questions, comments, or concerns about this item?
I was just going to also add that from speaking with these contractors, barring weather, this would probably be about a 3-week to a month-long project. We should be able to continue having normal operation of City Hall. And then, of course, the other thing I want to add is that all 3 of these bids, they did put in a comment that these bids are contingent on the unknown. You start pulling back wood, you don't know what's behind there, so it could be more, but I just want to add that.
And we don't want Karen to float away because her office gets kind of wet. Yes, sir.
You referred to it as a minimal amount of work, but in essence, in addition to taking care of the damaged areas that we can see, it also includes painting the entire building.
Painting it back to the similar color that you try to go to get back to about 90 to 95%. And also, the quote should also include adding a covered pavilion over the back door where when staff comes in and out. And of course, when I say minimal, I'm talking about just trying to be the most frugal to repair without creating a high bill.
Jason, there's probably Southern Transformations also has sort of a quick fix bid in there for about $10,000. It wasn't going to give us the kind of appearance I think we were looking for. But I just want to make sure that everybody on the council agrees that the $10,000 package is not exactly what we're looking for. It would rather have a long-term fix that a couple of the others estimated. I see Tony nod his head. I thought long-term is more. Okay. Because otherwise, that's the cheapest way to go.
Let's do it right.
I think we all want it done correctly.
Okay, okay.
I'm assuming we do. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Someone has put on here, it's a Band-Aid on an old building that needs new phone wiring and electric that was not updated when renovated. We'll look into that, thank you. Anything else? All right, let's move on. Now we're at item 7, which is to discuss the continuation or change of our financial consultant contracted for the city for our county efforts. As we all are aware, due to being without a city manager for up to almost 5 months, it was recommended by our auditor that we seek a financial advisor to work with the city on a part-time contracted basis, which we did. Barbara Kessler was put on, she signed a contract with the city. She is having to leave because her and her husband are starting a new business, so she can no longer serve in this capacity. Jason at this time is taking courses to become a municipal financial director through the Carl Vincent Institute, and we appreciate him going the second mile to learn all this good stuff. But in the meantime, we still need to have some financial advisor to help us. Jason has found a gentleman who lives in the area who is a retired bank.
He was controller of the banker, and he was a bookkeeper for a boat manufacturing company for many years. This gentleman's name is Clay Jarvis. He is a retired accountant. Has no desire to go full-time, and we met, I guess, by accident, but we were having some conversation about the city, and I think he has a spirit to help out. His world has been debits and credits, and he understands that stuff. a lot of the operational things going on, I think it would be good to kind of just help with that as we transition this in. He does not look for something long-term. And really, this request or this item would really just be a continuation, but a change. He's willing to work at the same, what I consider very competitive market rate that we were paying this customer, which is $25 an hour. And in fact, just on a side note, I think Mr. Jarvis and his wife were actually looking at a house in Sky Valley, which is what initiated our conversation. So, who knows, he may be a resident too one day.
Questions, concerns on this item? Mr. Moore?
What, does he have any experience working with city? Does he have any experience working with city financials?
He does not, but he does, I mean, he is aware that there are some subtle differences between private accounting and public accounting, and, I'm trying to arrange a meeting with Ms. Kessler and him to try to talk about some of the things to make sure we have a smooth transition. But we have had that conversation, and, I'm hoping to arrange something next week with her to talk about that. And,
Anything else that you have?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Jim?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Should we refer back?
Okay, let's move on to, and I see our guest is in the audience here. We want to discuss the possibility of engaging Surfline leak protection plan for our citizens. And Ms. Jan is here, Jeanette is here to talk about that. I guess you'll just have to do it without the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint presentation is online on our website. If you want to look at it.
If you go to skyvalleyga.com, anybody listening via Zoom, under the main page, you scroll down, it's there.
Let's have her bring the microphone a little closer to you, so that people can hear better online.
Is that fantastic?
No.
Okay.
Just making sure there's no wires.
Take it away.
Oh.
Keep yours unmuted.
So did they have the PowerPoint?
I did,
Yes,
I
we
did
are.
Yes.
forward that.
You do?
Okay,
Do you
yes.
have it in front of you now?
No, but Jason, you have it.
I have it.
I mean, I can just talk.
Well, I think that's probably best to summarize.
Okay,
Yeah.
summarize a bit and leave some room for questions.
Great.
Is that all right?
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you all this morning. I can't ask for a more picturesque and beautiful setting than this, I tell you. When I had the original discussions, I said, yes, please twist my arm to get me to come, 2 hours or so away. I reside in Chattanooga and was looking at some photos of where you all live, and this is just absolutely beautiful. So I was looking forward to being here with you all. As Mayor Holly said, I am here to kind of discuss a new solution for customer water leaks. Currently, you all have a policy in place, if I understand it correctly, where you will give customers one leak adjustment every 5 years. Is that correct? Wonderful. So in doing that, it's clear to me that you all understand customer water leaks, they're a bit of a pain for everyone involved. It's frustrating for customers who might not understand that, number one, their water and sewer lines are indeed their responsibility to take care of if they have an issue. It's their responsibility to upkeep those water and sewer lines from the meter on. So they might not understand that, but they also might not know when they get that high water bill, and it looks a little higher than normal, what to do. A little bit of a panic often comes into play because no one expects a high water bill until it happens to them. And then there's how am I going to afford it kind of questions. There's thoughts of, okay, am I going to have to reallocate different things in my budget for this month? Is the city able to put me on a payment plan? All sorts of stressful questions that customers are immediately starting to have to work through, which often results in a call to the city staff saying, what can you do for me? Can you help me? How do I fix this? What are my options? And so that's taking away the city's time and resources that really, it's not their responsibility to have to deal with in the first place. But because these are your customers, they're your neighbors and family, you want to be able to help them with this solution. So you have this once every 5-year adjustment policy in place, and that's great. But what Servine hopes to be able to do is actually enhance that, so that the city is no longer losing that revenue when you give an adjustment, and can we possibly give customers more than 1 in 5 years adjustment? So that's what Servine's goal is to actually enhance that policy. So your current 1 in 5 year adjustment policy would be replaced by Servine's insurance program. So we would establish a program guidelines with you that would clearly state out what qualifies as a leak, how many times in a year they're eligible for a leak adjustment, and if they have a qualifying leak, your customers would actually call Servine's customer service phone number. So we have our own customer service team in place. We have our own claims team in place so that your staff isn't having to field any of these phone calls. So they would call us to file an actual insurance claim. What we would then do is gather that customer's usage history from the city. We would find out if they found the leak, if they fixed the leak, and then once all the details are collected and gathered, we would write a reimbursement check back to the city, because you are technically going to be the name insured on the policy. Your customers would be participating in that if they want to participate in the program. So we would write that check back to the city, which then you would apply to the customer's account in the form of a payment. It's a fairly simple process, about as easy as that, once they've found the leak and fixed the leak. As I mentioned, they don't have to participate in the program if they do not want to. We do start by automatically protecting everyone to begin with. We don't want folks to miss the information and then not be eligible for a leak adjustment. So we would work with the city to send out information to customers about 30 days prior to the program starting. That's what our standard is, but if you'd like to do 60 days notice, you can do that. If you'd like to do 90 days notice, you can do that. But we would actually give you brochures that would go in their water bills 30 days prior to the program starting, just letting them know what date it's going to start, how much the program is going to cost, giving them some of the basic details, as well as that customer service number to call if they have any questions, or to let us know if they simply don't want to participate. If they do that, we do let them know that if they have a leak moving forward, they are responsible for that entire bill, that the city no longer is going to be giving an adjustment. So if they choose to decline participation in the program, they're accepting full responsibility. If that's their choice, no problem at all. We would remove them from the program. They'd never be charged. If they do not do that, if they choose to remain in the program, then all customers who did not decline to participate the following month would see that charge on their bill. So we would bill monthly, which the city would collect just like they do the normal water bill. It would come to you all, and then you would remit payment to Servine once a month as well. So it's a fairly easy transactional process regarding that. We do have some pricing available today as well, if you'd like to look into it. I do have a secondary program that the city is welcome to look at as well, and that's regarding a repair or replacement of customers' water or sewer lines. Because the Servine program is only dealing with that high water bill, the leak adjustment piece. It doesn't actually do the repairs for customers. But we do have a program available if the city would like to look into it. So I have information in the PowerPoint there as well as some pricing for that particular program. I will go ahead and pass this out to you all. And in the meantime, please let me know if you have any questions.
Ms. Haslett, I have some cost, I think that you gave us in the event that we were to go with the option of water leakage per month. It was $1.75 a month per customer that would cover $500 of a water event. Then it is $2 a month that would cover a $1,000 water event. And then $2.35 a month added to the water bill that would cover $2,500. And that's one event a year, is that correct?
Correct. For the proposal that is in front of the council, those are the pricing options that you would be able to pick from one that would apply to all customers. So you would set that up in advance. It gets a little confusing if it's a pick and choose after the point of starting it. But yes, you are correct. That is the pricing for the option of one leak adjustment in a 12-month period that can cover 2 billing cycles.
So essentially, if we as a council went to go with the $2.35 a month option per household, this would be put on their bill. This only adds up to $28.20 a year per customer. I mean, that's a meal. That's one dinner for a $2,500 event. Okay. Any other questions, Jim?
It seems to me that in a second home community where people may be slow to figure out that there's a leak, that we can accumulate water bills closer to the 2,500 pretty quickly. I would think that looks to me to be the most cost effective. I mean, the difference is very modest, but the difference in protection is quite substantial. I doubt that many of our water line breaks are going to be less than $1,000 anyway.
It could be more. That is, if I can ask a couple of questions, if I may.
Good.
You probably know all there is to know about this.
Yeah, what if there is a water bill over that 2,500? What would happen with the difference?
The difference would be left up to the customer or the city. You could have an addition to the policy that states the city will adjust above and beyond if there's a $5,000 leak. But Surfline is only legally able to cover up to $2,500 if you chose that highest limit. The rest is technically up to the customer unless the city chose to do something above and beyond what Surfline does.
Well, like Jim was saying, because we might not be able to find that leak into the next meter reading, it definitely could go beyond the 25, so then the owner would be responsible for the difference. But what about, like you was talking about the plumbing, the pipes running into the house, do you go by the age of the house or the age of the plumbing, or you don't take that into consideration at all?
Not for this, we do not. There's no pipe guidelines or rules or restrictions on what's covered. If it's a qualifying leak, and of course with insurance you have to have language like qualifying in there, things like a pool fill or someone's sweet granddaughter coming over and leaving the hose running, those are not instances that Surfline would be able to cover. However, things like a leaky commode, a hot water or water heater having a leak in it, we can't replace the hot water heater, but the high water bill that's caused, we can definitely work with that. I believe in here we also have a 2 times the customer's average bill qualifier, which would mean that customers' bills must at least reach twice their average in order to qualify for an adjustment. Because it's once every 12 months, that parameter helps eliminate some of the smaller leaks that customers might be at risk of taking themselves. and then running the risk of having a high water bill later that's higher than that smaller. So that is a qualifier in here that I do want to make the council aware of. If that is an issue, please let me know. I can see what I can do about getting that removed, but I can't make any promises.
So if the bill runs over $2,500, would it be reasonable for us to keep in reserve the policy that we have now, such that for a $3,500 bill, the city could share perhaps in that?
I think, Jim, that's a great question. Our current water ordinance is kind of contradictory anyway. We need to look at it anyway, so I think that would be something we certainly could talk about.
And in creation of that, we could definitely help if you needed. We've had utilities do that in the past that have wanted to do something above and beyond, but having language in there that's applicable to as long as the customer is participating in the Servine program so that the city is not on hook for customers who aren't participating, things of that nature. So if you'd like assistance with crafting the language, we can definitely help you with that.
And Janet, did I understand you to say that you insure communities regardless of the condition of their current water system, you just take it as is?
Correct, yes. So we tailor this program to every community that we work with. We work with all shapes and sizes and demographics and locations in the country. And so we try to look at your community specifically. If your leaks don't look that bad in 2 years, we can readjust your rate to actually reduce that cost for your customers. So we do try to get an additional year or 2 years of looking at what losses look like before we change any rates. But we do try to make it as fair as possible for your customers.
Cool, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Moore.
I think you covered this, but I just want to clarify that we would go out to all of the residents that receive water bills and let them know that we're going to charge them X amount. They have the option to opt out of that.
Correct. Correct, yes. So it is an opt-out. It is not opt-in. That is a great
I think that's
distinction.
a good approach.
Yes, Mr. Oliver.
The question is, this proposed rates that you have here, how long are they valid?
We do ask for about a year to 2 years of looking at the data before we do any reductions in cost. We want to be able to see what a good year or a bad year might look like. If losses and adjustments and everything look good, your rate could be the same for years to come. If we needed to adjust rates from an increased perspective in the future, we would come to you in advance of that and take a look at why your rate seems to be off from the cost of the program versus what we're paying out in claims. So we would do an adjustment on the policy rather than change customers' costs. So I don't have an exact number for you, but what we typically do is give an additional about 2 years and then look at the rates again to see what it could cost. But they don't change on a 2 to 4 to 5 year case or anything.
So
Is that outlined in the contract?
So yes, in the insurance policy that you all would sign, it's an annual policy, so we can look at it as often as you'd like. It does renew on an annual basis. That might actually help answer a little better.
My concern is in a year, I don't want to see it go sky high.
No, sir. I can tell you that in the 6 years I've been working for this program, I don't know that I've actually ever seen a rate increase. I maybe have seen it once because the leaks were just far above and beyond what we thought, and we had tried to adjust a policy. And what I mean by that is rather than increase rates, we would look at that 2 times average qualifier, and rather than that, we might say, what could a 2.5 times qualifier look like to eliminate smaller leaks that wouldn't increase rates in the future, something of that nature. But I hear your concern completely, and then we would have a discussion well before doing any rate increases.
For the council to know, Jason has talked to surrounding municipalities who use Servine, and I'll let him talk about that.
Madam Mayor, I was actually making a motion, Mr. Holbrook's had a question. Do you want to make a comment, James?
Yeah, I've got a question on these meters, and the insurance on
If
them.
you can come forward with the microphone.
Well, the question I had on was, we've got condos up here.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, James.
We got some of the condo units, we got
Speak into the microphone.
We got 2-inch meter servicing 10 units. That might be an issue that's gonna come up, how would they pay? And if they have one, like in the first unit, and they have a problem, a water leak or something like that, and the insurance pays out, what about the other 9? Is that, you see what I'm saying?
So let me ask a follow-up question, if I may.
Great question. Thank you.
So how are those condos metered? Is it a
It's
master
a
meter
1 2-inch meter.
that goes off?
One meter furnishes the whole building. Timeshare is gonna be the same issue.
Sure. So because, and I'm sure you all see a lot of that here, and that is a unique scenario, and so I'm glad you brought that up. That is addressed in the proposal on the pricing page on page 5. Anything that is a habitational type residence that is attached to a master meter, like the scenario that he was discussing, that pricing structure is a little different. And to be honest, most communities choose not to move forward with the Servine program for those particular instances. So for just this scenario, it would be $2.50 per unit, so per condo, for that one master meter. However, they would only get the one protection limit. So there would be the possibility of customers kind of asking, well, who gets that one adjustment? And the landlord, if it's owned by a landlord, having to figure that out. Most communities choose not to do that unless it's something like a duplex. But that is up to the council to decide. I think the city of Hiwassee specifically chose to go ahead and offer it to them because it's available, and if they didn't want it, they could just say no thank you. They didn't have that many, so I think they might have actually just called them up individually and asked if they wanted it or not. But that is something that the council could talk amongst yourselves and decide if you would like to do. Again, that $2.50 per unit would apply for the habitational type living situations. Now, if it's a business that is not habitational, they have a meter size of 2 inches and smaller, things like churches, convenience stores, things of that nature. We do have a commercial rate available for them that they could, if you wanted to move forward with commercial, they could be available to use this program as well. But they wouldn't be under that $2.50 per meter type structure. It would just be for that habitational. So that would be a little bit up to the council to decide how you'd like to handle. Again, as I said, a lot of communities choose to move forward with the residential only and not deal with the condos, continue doing adjustments for the condos, how you're currently doing it, or adjusting that once you implement Servine. Ultimately, that's your decision. Does that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Shannon,
Yes.
the $2.35 per month, how much of the system does that cover? It covers all the way from the wells to the tap, or the wells to the meter, or the wells to the homeowner's pipes?
Good question. So for the leak protection only, for the high water bill program, from the meter in the main water line going from the meter to the home, and then leaks inside the home as well. If there are lines that tee off from that main water line, if there are outbuildings in the back or things that are attached to that main structure, those would not qualify. However, leaks coming off of that main water line from the meter to the home and then leaks inside the home would apply. Good question. Now, wells would be different because they wouldn't necessarily be on city water. So for the leak protection, that wouldn't apply to them. This is just for customers who have water through the city. Now, the repair or replacement program, that can deal with repairs and replacements of customers who might have wells and septic as well. those well lines, but that's a different program.
Yeah, our city water,
Yes.
it comes from wells.
Oh, right.
And the city treats it.
So for you all, leaks on your side, this wouldn't apply. It would just be for the customers, from the meter on. But I see what you're saying with the city wells.
Now, make sure you understand about the condo, it's got 60 units, of which they're paying $2.50 a piece. You would only cover one leak a year for the 60 units.
Correct. That's correct. We didn't even have that coverage available 3 or 4 years ago because the insurance company could not quite figure out how to handle that. They did not want to do it. However, we had so many communities ask for some coverage for it. So they were able to create the $2.50 per unit. That's why for things like a 60-unit type business or apartment, this wouldn't necessarily make sense for them. For the smaller duplexes, quadruplexes, things of that nature, that still might make sense for,
5 unit.
yes, for something like that, it still might. But the ones that are a little bit larger, it probably doesn't make sense for them.
Okay, great, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yes, sir.
Now, go ahead, Ed.
Madam Mayor, just to further comment on the condo situation, we're so seasonal up here that you're going to have, for 4 or 5 months, you're going to have consumption up here, and then it's going to be down here. So trying to figure out how to assure that, I think, is difficult. When people opt in or don't opt out, are they making a commitment to stay with you for a year, or can they have a water leak and then say, okay, adios?
They can absolutely say adios if they'd like. There is no commitment. The only thing is if they do want to come back into the program later on, there is a 30-day wait period at that point. But they can choose to use the once-in-a-year adjustment and opt out if they'd like. We don't typically see that. It's a little bit more convenient for folks to remain in and pay the $235, but they absolutely have that option.
And one follow-up is, and this is internal, but I'd be interested in seeing what our experience has been over the last 2 years. Karen, is that a statistic that we could look at how many overages we've had and amounts? As we're trying to explain to the citizens, I think a little bit, it'd be good to let them know what their potential liability might be if they happen to be one of those unlucky ones.
Jim, later on in the PowerPoint presentation, there was another schedule of rates which looked like it had something to do with the in-home pipes.
Yes.
Is that, and that's different from what you just explained, the 235 covers the pipes to the house, but not inside the house?
So the 235 is for the high water bill, a leak that is from that main line to the house and in the internal house as well. The secondary set of rates that you'll see later on in the presentation, those are referring to the Service Line Warranties Program. And that program is actually endorsed by the National League of Cities. It is an optional opt-in program for your customers that we would partner with the city to make available to them. We would send out about 3 letter campaigns a year letting them know what's available to them. And in that program, we have exterior water line coverage, exterior sewer line coverage or septic line coverage, and interior plumbing and drainage coverage. 3 different options for those, and they could sign up for one of them, none of them, or all of them if they would like. And that actually takes care of the repair or replacement costs that customers incur for getting a plumber out to fix their pipe that might have burst, or fix the pipe internal inside the home that might have burst. So that program is a separate contract from the Servine program. You can choose to do both if you'd like. You can just choose to do one or neither as well, that works. So it's up to the city if you would like to enter into an insurance agreement with the Surfline and then a marketing contract agreement with the Service Line Warranties Program as well. And that's something that we can discuss too if you have questions on that program.
And that would be something that a homeowner could pick up 5 years from now if you need.
Correct, yep. And that is billed, the Surfline program is billed through the city because that's dealing with the water bill and your water as well. The Service Line program is billed separate from the city, so that's between our company and your customers. And we make it clear in the language as well that the city's partnered with our company. You're not providing these coverages to them, we are, but you've partnered with us to help make it available to them.
The reason I ask is that, for example, my home is 40 years old, has the original septic tank. I know some people have experienced septic tank failures, and this might be an option of interest.
Sure. Now, unfortunately, the tank itself would not be.
Tank is not.
The tank is not, but the lines going to the tank are. Yes.
Now, some of the condo associations have maybe bigger problems in some of the houses. Would that be subject to the 1 a year?
That would possibly be, but that goes back, the condo, that would go back to, for the high water bill, that would go back to the $2.50.
There's nothing like that for the sewer line protection.
Correct.
Thank you.
So if I'm a homeowner and my water heater breaks and my house is flooded, does the high water protection plan help only just pay for the water that was, okay?
Just the water bill, correct.
But your second plan would help with just the pipes, but not the water heater itself?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
You
Got
damage,
it.
Y'all got it.
Your homeowners should help.
Yeah, true.
Yes, the actual damage would fall under homeowners.
We live in an interesting community. Most of us are comfortable with the idea of self-insuring. But there's also a number of people, I mean, they sort of fly under the radar that don't have the resources to come up with a, $1,500 water bill. So I think this is a nice program.
And that is the nice thing, the customers who want to take on that responsibility themselves can. You seem like a pretty ingrained community here. I think you would have good success in getting the word out to your customers about the program, giving them pretty good education on what's available to them and when it's going to start. So I don't know that you'd have many issues, but if you do, that's definitely one of the reasons that we have our team in place to help field those questions so that you all and your staff don't have to.
One last question. If you have somebody, their pipes outside their house burst and they have a large water bill, what about the plumber that comes out to fix the pipes? Is that part of the initial program? Or is
The
that
initial program is not, the second program, the Service Line Warranties Program.
So they would pay the plumber to come out at 2 o'clock in the morning and fix it?
So that program actually is a little bit unique. We would actually pay the contractor or the plumber directly. The customer would not have to pay anything out of pocket. So in paying for those coverages, it's basically a turnkey program. So all they do is give us a call, let us know that they've had an issue, a pipe burst, and we would send out as quickly as possible a local licensed contractor. We vet all of our contractors prior to allowing them to be in our network. We make sure they have all the proper insurances and licensing. We use as local as we possibly can because we want to keep those funds in your local community as well. If we have to branch out from that, we will. But we take our customer service with that very seriously. So then, yes, the customer wouldn't actually have to pay anything out of pocket. Up to, I will say, up to $8,500 for the water line protection and sewer line protection if they sign up for that. It's up to $3,000 for the internal plumbing. All of those coverages are an unlimited number of service calls a year.
Just to follow up on Jim's comment though about self-insuring, I think the premise here is the city then will change the ordinance where if you have a leak and you don't have insurance, if you're on your own, we would not be providing that once a year benefit.
Is there a ballpark figure for the second program?
I do, actually, yes. And that should be in your
Was it in the folder?
packet as well, but I can just really quickly.
That'd be great.
So there are actually two options for you all. The city can choose to participate in a royalty revenue addition if you'd like. And what that means is for 50 cents extra a month, you all could receive, for customers who sign up for these individual coverages, you would receive 50 cents per month per coverage. We would pay that to you every year. Cities often use those extra funds as a way of investing back into the community for projects you might have upcoming, low-income programs, things of that nature. If you do not want to move forward with the royalty program, we would then just give that as a rate reduction to your customers. So in the one that I have printed out, let's see, the pricing for the water service line is $6.49. The pricing for the sewer or septic line is $8.49 per month. And then the pricing for interior plumbing and drainage is $9.99 per month. And that's for the three different coverages.
Any other questions? Any other questions or comments?
But just to make sure everybody understood, and to make sure I understood what Ed said, but I think what Ed said was that this gets the city off the hook for sharing any kind of cost with anybody in the city by virtue of having the option to stay in this particular insurance program, which seems like very reasonable.
Unless the leakage event is over $2,500, and we can talk about that.
That's right. Right.
Correct.
And it is giving them an additional benefit of one every 12 months, whereas right now your ordinance is one every 5 years. So it does give them a little bit more of an added benefit, which often in that scenario, when we see that kind of come into play, the need for payment plans often decreases as well, because they're going to be able to get that higher water bill paid for almost immediately, rather than having to pay it off over month to month.
And the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation answered the question I had. My question was, well, how do you make sure everybody, is really diligent about repairing their leaks? And the answer was that, well, they can't file until after they fix the leak.
Right, yes, so they do need to find the leak and fix the leak before the claim can be closed.
There's an incentive there to timely repair it.
Correct.
Thank you.
And all of that information is available to your customers. If they want more when the program gets going, if they want the full insurance policy, we can send them that. It is a lot of language that doesn't necessarily apply because insurance policies are long, but we will actually send them more information if they request it, so that they can have at their disposal.
How are the condos billed for their water use?
We're told once per month. We don't have individual units, it's all just one per.
So y'all just divide it up at that point?
They charge us $40 a month. And basically, they're looking at your consumption divided by 48 units.
You all have 48 units. Is yours the largest condo?
It's the best one.
I know it's the best, but yours is the largest number of units in one area?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I will just throw this out there. You can just take it or leave it. The rate that Serviline is charging per month is the rate that we've predicted our costs will be with having very limited data. As I mentioned, if we can reduce those in the future, we would like to. The rate that you all choose to charge per month is at the discretion of the city. So you have a unique scenario here where you have condos that it might not be advantageous for you to apply the Servine program to those condos. However, if you took the $235 per month, increased it to $250 and even $250, you could allocate that extra amount per month to be used for adjustments for customers who live in condos. So that is something that the city could choose to do if you would like, not something that we either recommend or don't. It is available to you,
So
so
we
that
have
could
a
be
savings plan to help cover that.
correct, so that they still are able to benefit in some way from it.
Any other questions or concerns? Thank you so much, and can we have your phone number so we can call you 24/7?
It is actually in that PowerPoint,
Okay.
so it seems like the whole community can call me, so. But yes, my number is in there as well. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email if you have any other questions. I'm 2.5 hours away, so it's hard for me to come and answer any of
If
your
we
questions.
decide, we don't vote it at the workshop.
Sure.
If we decide to go with one of your plans, you all give us the brochures to put in the water bill to explain to the citizens.
Correct.
That's
We
right.
typically ask for about 3 months of lead time to, between voting for approval and getting the program started. We like to do a sort of staff training to make sure that the city staff are aware of things that are required, just the monthly reporting, invoices, things like that. We want to make sure that they feel good about that information, and then have you all look over the brochure that's going to be sent out to the customers, and then yes, we would give that to you to send out 30 days prior.
I think the city of Clayton has gone with you all also.
Yes.
Recently. That's where I read about you.
Oh, awesome. Yes, they recently started. They were actually doing something a little bit different themselves, and it became a little bit too much, and they wanted to go ahead and outsource it, and I think it's been working really well for them. So, and certainly the Hiwassee, I love that community, so I think y'all are probably pretty similar to them. The Liz Ordialis, their mayor over there, she's wonderful. And
No, we're better.
there you go. I love it.
Chairman, just offhand, do you remember which plan the city of Clayton is under?
I want to say they're under the $1,000,
Okay,
but I could be wrong on that.
Thank you.
I think the city of Hiwassee is as well. City of Blue Ridge, not too far away either. It's 2,500 for sure. Well, if anything else comes up, please let me know. Y'all have been wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you. All right, let's move to our final agenda item. I know everybody's sad about that. Discuss the quote from our Atlanta Special Effects for our iconic firework display on July the 3rd. Jason, you want to talk about that?
Mayor, the city budgeted $5,500 fireworks this year. Everything has changed as we know with COVID. We found ourselves in a situation where a lot of these companies closed down last year. Now, as we're starting to slowly get back to normal, you have a supply and demand problem. There's a demand for fireworks shows, but the supply of pyrotechnicians that can do the bang is limited. We had a company that we were talking with. They could provide the fireworks, they could not provide the technicians. And so we were left with a challenge of trying to either find somebody on staff that could do that. We reached out to some were interested, some were not. The clock was ticking. Really couldn't get a commitment, so I started picking up the phone. I called about 10, just pulled the old-fashioned, pulled the phone book, internet Google search, started calling some of these companies. The prices have gone up exponentially. In fact, I spoke to, I believe, 4 different companies. Many of these companies were in the 15,000 plus range for somebody to come up. setup sheet with all the appropriate insurance, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of them, they were upwards of 20,000. Was actually able to find this company here. As you can see, it is more than what we budgeted. It's a little bit less than $10,000, but they are licensed, they are insured, they have the ability to come up on that third date. My recommendation would be that we go with this company. The only other thing I will add, I did not get a quote for this. There was a gentleman in Calhoun, Georgia, that could provide us with a pre-packaged fireworks where I guess it would be more consumer versus a commercial type, what this would be, where basically everything's wired, we just light the fuse and let you go up. It was going to be upwards of about $8,500. And that would not include providing a technician. It would not be as nice as a commercial, what we would be getting here, but most people expect. So it is a challenge to find people, maybe hopefully next year. If I'm speaking with these companies, they all say the same thing. If this was pre-COVID-19, we could have somebody up here and it would be cost effective or what we're used to seeing or in the past. But have worked hard to try to find somebody under that $10,000 range. And as the clock is ticking, as we're getting closer and closer, this company has been gracious enough to give us a verbal commitment. Obviously, they didn't get paid, but if we're going to do this, I would recommend we go with this company.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Jason, in the past, has the city borne the full cost of the fire?
So I understand that we have, so we will have to.
Or we could have the council standing on the dam with sparklers or something. That would be our other. You could have. Any questions on this?
Just to answer Bruce's question, though, I think probably going back 3 years ago, the funds contributions from the local entities went into what they call the three-way fund. And I'm thinking the fireworks was paid out of that fund. But having said that, I don't see any reason why we can't ask the POA and the club and even the timeshares to contribute, since they all benefit from that. Maybe to help at least offset the difference between our budget and the cost of the show.
Yeah, 10,055.
Or at least the timeshare, since the POA already puts in 15,000, and I think the club puts in 5,000 towards marketing. But that's something we can discuss, that's for sure.
In fact, I guess there's two options. There's one whether we wanted the marketing committee to agree jointly to use some of those funds.
Correct.
And I think we had some left over from
I think we
last
did,
year.
I think we did, yeah. I know that I've asked Bob O'Keefe to be at our meeting next week and talk about proposed expenditures on marketing, so we certainly can talk about that. Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, I'm going forward on the fireworks situation. Is there any benefit of having a 2 or 3 year agreement with some of these companies to get a better rate on a yearly basis?
Certainly ask. I mean, from what I kind of gleaned from them is that this is an anomaly with where we're at now, that I mean, it could very well go down next year. I mean, we're hoping that maybe next year this price will be less, but again, I think it's a classic supply and demand scenario.
Well, if we don't do this, it sounds like we're not going to have any fireworks this year.
That's correct.
And I'm pretty sure that the citizens expect to see a fireworks display. I mean, that's our biggest event of the summer. I think we need to go ahead and book this thing. And if we want, we can figure out how to pay for it later. But I hope in the future that, you know, the city is gonna be able to stand on its own feet for things like this.
Normally, we have this all done bid, as they say in Georgia, in January, but COVID businesses really put us in bind, but I agree with you, too. I agree with you. Okay, everybody, thank you all, council, for all that you do for Sky Valley, for our citizens, and making our city a model mountain municipality. Thank you, Jason, for everything you've done. Thank you to the city workers for all that they do. At this time, do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Second, Jim. And do I need to take a vote?
No.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yes, all in favor. Thank you all, for all the people online also who have sat and listened to this and your comments. Thank you all very much.